My name is Liatzi Lausan. I am the Director of Global Market Development for Cell Culture and Cell Therapy Business here at Thermo Fisher. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have a great opportunity to have a fruitful discussion about how our industry is contributing. Our company is really helping our customers to supply assurance through really very challenging times that we have all been living through. So we're going to start with you, Christine, and we all have seen how unprecedented times we have been going through global supply chains in any industry, not just our industry in particular. But when we talk about our bioprocessing field, we have seen a specific challenge where our market have seen suppliers not being able to meet timelines, and that in turn has the risk of impacting our customers' ability to deliver life-saving therapies to the customers, the patients they serve. What can you tell us about the steps that we have taken here at Thermo Fisher to address those issues?
Well, thanks for the question, Liatzi, and thanks for including me in this really special day. In our cell culture and cell therapy business, we have over 1,000 unique raw materials. And with all the complex formulations and the custom nature of the business, we've historically been single or sole sourced. And so over the last few years, we've been intentionally investing in alternate source. And we know that that's a lot of work for our team, and you'll hear a little bit more, I think, from Michelle about that. It's a lot of work for our customers, but in the end, it provides that optionality as each of our customers are looking to scale and grow, and we want that robustness and that resiliency. But another area that I want to mention is the transparency that we've really driven with our customers and our suppliers through this very constrained time. I think as we hear from John and from Tracy, there's probably never been a time in the bioproduction space that suppliers have been closer to their customers, and if they haven't been as successful.
I would like to now hear from you, John, since your company was so involved in the front lines of the COVID pandemic response through vaccine development and successfully being able to develop and manufacture a vaccine candidate that is being used by many people around the world. What were the challenges that you saw particularly for your company in regards to supply chain?
So thank you for the invitation to be here today. So as Christine mentioned, with the COVID program in the United States, there were those rated orders. And so any company that was part of OWS benefited from that. I had an interesting conversation with Andy over lunch of, is there something that we can learn from the way that the COVID response was organized in a top-down way? I don't know what the answer is, but for example, having this capacity expansion, bringing on excess capacity that's not 100% allocated right from the start, that might be a solution, because then if you have surge capacity to respond to a disruption, and maybe you offer that surge capacity at a higher price for those customers that are saying, I really need it, that might be one simple way. And obviously what you were both saying about secondary suppliers, resilience is very important as well.
Excellent, thank you. Now I want to ask you, Michelle, since of course raw material sourcing is important, but equally important as how we characterize those raw materials and make sure that they are appropriate to be used, incorporated into our media products. So what can you tell us about that process and what steps we follow, and how do we ensure lot-to-lot consistency through the work that we do here?
Great question, Liatzi, and thank you. I'm very honored as well to be part of this panel today. Our cell culture business invested over 5 years ago into a program where we can characterize our raw materials. This is a team that's cross-functional in order to ensure that we're staying aligned with our customers, our quality management system, working with R&D as they're developing new media, and ensuring in part the quality of our raw materials. One of the main aspects of this is that sometimes you bring in raw materials that have trace element impurities. And for those of you that may know, drug manufacturing can be very sensitive to different levels of trace elements. And when you're not expecting them, they can impact the performance and the product quality, which means the drug won't work properly, and the manufacturer has to solve for that. We call this a poor performance, and we need to go back and try to identify what caused that problem. We've worked very closely with our customers and with global consortiums such as Bioforum to identify raw material variability as a critical factor in media consistency for use by our customers to keep their process consistent. What we found is that we can trend the data. We have a searchable database as we test over 100 different raw materials for a panel of 21 trace elements. And how this relates to our finished good media consistency is we can test for another 11 elements in those finished goods. When a complaint comes in or when we see an alert level as we are qualifying these secondary suppliers compared to our historical suppliers is where now we've had a warning limit of, do we have consistent material going out the door? It's very important for us to ensure that we're delivering consistent products to our customers.
Thank you, Michelle. And let me head to you, Ryan, now. We've talked about how we source and how we characterize our raw materials. And we would also like to know what happens once those go through quality and what are the processes that we're following internally to ensure from entry point to finished products, finished goods products, that quality is at the forefront of everything we do here.
Thank you, Liatzi. And very excited to build off of the previous comments from Christine and our guests and Michelle. Overall, we're constantly trying to raise the bar on quality. First and foremost, our number one focus is developing a robust supply chain across our network. As Christine mentioned, thousands of chemicals, and if you have any single one go bad, it can be a problem. How we go about doing that is we're looking for more in-depth information from our customers down to the secondary and tertiary level as a means to better protect our facility and, of course, our customers that we are so fortunate to serve. We also have implemented a adventitious agent program looking at all of our chemicals that are either derived indirectly or directly from animal origin sources as a way to mitigate risk to our customers, again, and that's especially important in the cell therapy space. Also, we recently centralized our raw material qualification process across the media network. Much like what Christine was saying earlier, the consistency and speed of qualification was our goal through that effort for the network. Then finally, I guess what I'm most proud of is we host over 200 customer audits every year within our network, so that equates to us really collaborating with customers once every other day. And I am very thankful for that feedback as a whole, because that's what helps us get better and helps us to meet or exceed our customers' needs.
Thank you, Ryan. And can you touch upon how we are reinforcing those processes for the future? And we have been discussing with our customers, and our commercial team have been talking about it constantly, how we are ensuring equivalency across our networks of manufacturing sites. We would like to hear your perspective on how are we doing that to ensure it from a quality process standpoint.
First and foremost, earlier this year, we aligned and deployed the exact same lab information management system across our network. That is huge to enable our overall efficiency in testing and data sharing. Beyond that, we have also worked to align our validation strategy in a time of growth. That is, of course, very important. We have many other changes we've made overall to get us to a true media network in the future.
Is that something that you, Tracy, and John have found also maybe from other suppliers in the industry? They are also talking about that? How do you hear that? I'm just curious to know.
I guess from my perspective, first of all, thank you. Thank you for all the efforts. We don't reach out to you guys for help. Why? Because your products are consistent. So from our perspective, whether you're making it in Inchin in Scotland or here in Grand Island, what we see on our side is the same manufacturing yield capacity, no matter where the media has come from. So thank you. The efforts are working.
what I would say, what comes to mind as I was listening to you speak is, if you think about short-term process variation and long-term process variation, I go back to a statistics class that I took in industry a number of years ago, and the instructor pointed to raw material variation as your classic source of long-term process variation. And if you think about ramping up manufacturing, as a number of manufacturers had to do in the past couple of years, we took those really long cycles of raw material changeovers and we compressed them. And I have seen some challenges there. And the problem that we tend to find is that those changes in raw material lots or source or whatever that lead to process variation are very often not understood. And that leads to panic of something has shifted in my process. I don't know what it is. I have to fix it immediately or there's a business or compliance impact. So, how do we fix it? I think the conversation that I was having this morning with members of the site team is one of those steps. We had a quick conversation about the poloxamer, where I think it was Jim Mecca, spoke to, hey, you had understood that the vendor of your poloxamer was not doing line changeover appropriately. Well, when we saw that issue, we didn't even know it was a raw material associated issue at the start. So I think having conversations up the supply chain, trying to really understand the science, what does the process control need to be, not taking today's spec as being complete, but saying, what is it about today's spec that may be insufficient and that we can drive it to be tighter and more complete?
All right, so lastly, for you, Darren, now we've talked about equivalency across sourcing, raw materials characterization, quality. What can you tell us about how do we ensure equivalency in the manufacturing, the actual making of our products here?
Yeah, so when we talk about equivalency, it's not just mirroring what we're already doing in our facility. It's also about making sure that we're taking best practices, applying those in the new manufacturing areas, and also taking opportunity to address some of the pain points that we may have had in our manufacturing processes with the expansion. We work very closely with Inchin, which I think everyone here knows also has a fluid bed, right? So for the years they've been manufacturing alongside with us, AGT, we're sharing SOPs, work instructions, and other product specifications, and there's a lot of collaboration that goes on there to make sure that you have that consistency from one site to another in the manufacturing process. I think one of the things that we have to do right now is really utilize the global supply chain, right, and work with customers to dual source us as a supplier, right? What can we do in Inchin, and we can also do in Grand Island, so we can move the demand to the supply location that can serve it as quickly as possible, since lead times are so critical. But beyond that, we have more work to do in our liquid manufacturing area, and I'm really excited about the work we're doing with smart capacity and digitization of that process, so we can monitor both production and quality attributes of our process and make process changes that make sense to improve quality and production for customers.
Thank you, Darren. Any final thoughts from our panelists?
I'll just add to build off of what we were talking about in terms of the future, because I think the automation is a great area to kind of build upon as we think about, again, our supply base, knowing how important raw materials are, and just trying to get a proactive look at risk. And so we've been working with a lot of our customers, taking their order book out the next year or two, because we're working with customers on a longer horizon. Not that a forecast will ever be perfect, but you'll have visibility for what campaigns and what needs are there based on their network. And then back to Darren's point, how do we optimize our networks to best serve so we have the better lead times, the consistent lead times. So I think the whole concept now of coming through this very challenging pandemic time with huge demand, both genuine demand and call it safety stock adjustment and stock up. But now that as some of that is settling and many of us are catching up with our capacities, both capacity as you see here for finished goods, as well as our supply base, we have a real opportunity now to take all those learnings from this difficult time and really be more transparent and strategic together as strategic partnerships. I think that the patients and animals and everyone out there that are served by our products and services are absolutely going to benefit from us being more collaborative and more transparent, which hasn't always been the case, right? And so I think that's significant. And as Darren talked about automation, it made me think a bit about kind of sharing those signals and really digitizing where possible and practical.
All right, well, with that, I would like to thank our wonderful panelists for sharing your insights.